What if I told you the 30-year mortgage, the supposed gold standard of the American dream, is actually draining tens of thousands from your pocket and putting an entire generation's future at risk? Millennials, for example, are hitting homeownership later than any group before, with only half owning homes by now, while nearly 1/4 expect they'll rent forever, not by choice but out of necessity. Here's the shock. That seemingly manageable $400,000 house at a 6% rate actually costs you $690,000 to $830,000 over the life of the loan. And the real kicker, the system was built this way. Today I'll show you the untold story behind the 30-year mortgage, reveal how it quietly fueled our housing bubble, and walk you through a step-by-step plan that could save you 6 figures and years of financial stress if you act before the next market surge. Ready to see how the banks win big and what you can do instead? Let's dive in. Let's start by unraveling how the 30-year mortgage, often hailed as a ticket to the American dream, has quietly engineered a housing crisis stretching across generations. Now, before I break down the numbers that'll make your jaw drop, remember this video is strictly for educational purposes. I'm John from Money Masters, not your financial advisor, so always consult a professional about your unique situation. The broad strokes of our current housing mess trace back to several roots. Government subsidies, low interest rates set by the Fed, and inflation stoked by aggressive monetary policy and quantitative easing. But if you look closer, you'll realize the ability to finance a home across 3 full decades, and for lenders to sell off that debt to government-backed entities, is a core reason why prices have soared completely out of sync with incomes. Wherever long-term subsidized debt enters a market, think student loans, think auto loans, costs don't just float, they inflate rapidly. And the proof is in the numbers. Did you know only about half of millennials have hit homeownership by their late 30s and early 40s? That's years behind previous generations. And the hardship isn't just psychological. Nearly 1/4 of millennials believe they'll rent forever, not because they want to, but because sky-high prices and colossal mortgage burdens have slammed the door on their options. Let's rewind for a minute. 30-year mortgages are a mid-20th century invention. Before the 1940s, home loans were typically 5 years long. You bought a house, made larger payments, paid it off, and that was it. The 30-year mortgage was a policy response after the Great Depression, a tool to revive economic growth and boost homeownership, but also a trap for long-term debt most buyers couldn't imagine. Fast forward. Today, about 70% of all mortgages are underpinned by the federal government. This means the housing market is less of a free-for-all and more like centrally planned lending. Remember, when lenders originate a mortgage now, they can typically sell the loan off to the feds and move on. It's no longer their risk. That's why you still see mortgage rates hanging around 6.3%. For now. If Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were ever privatized again, as some policymakers have suggested, you'd see rates spike much higher, since private lenders would demand bigger returns for taking the real risk. This brings us to one of the hidden traps. Yes, the 30-year mortgage opened doors for millions, but it locked those same buyers into the longest most expensive financial contracts of their lives. Let's put hard numbers behind that claim. Say you buy a median-priced $400,000 house today at 6% interest. Over 30 years, you'll pay out between $690,000 and $830,000 depending on exact terms, before you even consider maintenance, insurance, or taxes. That's almost double the sticker price, all thanks to long-term compounding interest. I want you to really see this, so here's the breakdown. At 6% interest, a $400,000 loan over 30 years means a monthly principal and interest payment of roughly $2,398. Multiply that by 360 months, and you get $863,280. Subtract your principal, $400,000, and you've paid $463,280 in interest as a loan. And if you're working with a down payment lower than 20%, maybe you're using FHA with 3.5% down, or via USDA loans with 0% down, You're financing even more principal, which makes for larger monthly payments and higher total interest. Lenders love this setup. The smaller your down payment, the bigger their cut. And the longer your term, the more profitable your business becomes for them. Quick pause. Have you ever actually calculated your total mortgage lifetime cost? Comment yes or need a calculator below. Most people have no idea. And that's why I built a free spreadsheet, link in the description, that lets you crunch your exact numbers for multiple loan scenarios. It's eye-opening. And could save you thousands. Let's look at how this trend snowballed through the decades. By the 1970s, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were packaging these loans. Mortgage-backed securities. A whole secondary market was born that craved debt as its lifeblood. That fever led directly to the 2000s housing bubble, as banks started offering riskier and riskier loans. Subprime interest only zero down. Even Ninja no income. No job loans. If you needed a home, someone would finance it, regardless of whether you could ever pay it off. Let's visualize how our housing market has changed. In 1970, the average home cost $26,000, and the average annual income was $9,800. A house was just 2.5 times your yearly salary. Today, the median house is $410,000. Median household income, $83,000. So now it's nearly 5 times annual pay. Double the pain before considering all the extra interest over decades. I want to break down why lenders' government policy and low down payment programs all point toward one thing: rising prices and ballooning consumer risk. With attractively small down payments and long terms, buyers can bid more and sellers can demand more, pushing prices ever higher. The key insight: whenever buyers are able to borrow more, prices escalate until they consume the extra lending capacity. Lenders aren't giving you a gift. They're capturing years of your paycheck as profit. By the way, if you've ever felt priced out or overwhelmed by today's market, share your story below. Let's crowdsource some real solutions together. Your voice can help others navigate this maze. Now, as we dig even deeper, let's shift to something actionable. The framework I call the Mortgage Trap Avoidance Plan, or MTAP. Here are the 5 essential moves every homebuyer or current owner thinking about refinancing needs to consider. Step 1. Get pre-approved for the amount you can comfortably afford, not for the maximum a bank will lend, and never on a 30-year lock, unless you already know it's the best fit. If you're not sure, request a shorter-term pre-approval as a point of comparison. Step 2. Analyze your total 30-year all-in cost with our spreadsheet, including principal, interest, insurance, property tax, and an estimate for repairs. Run multiple down payment scenarios to see their effect on lifetime cost. Sometimes, stretching for an extra 5% on your down payment can slash interest by tens of thousands. Step 3. Stress test your budget. Use my spreadsheet or an online calculator to simulate your payment if rates jump by 1 to 2%. Would you still be comfortable? And do this even for fixed-rate loans. Your taxes and insurance could still spike. Step 4. Build a home buying buffer fund. Aim for at least 6 months of living expenses on top of your down payment. The #1 reason people lose their homes in foreclosures is an emergency that wipes out their cash cushion. Job loss, medical expenses, unexpected repairs. Don't let your dream home become a nightmare just because you skipped this step. Step 5. Consider a wait-and-watch trigger checklist. Sometimes, the best move is to rent for another year or 2 if prices or rates are high, or if you're stretching your budget to breaking point. Use checklists to track your local home price trends, your savings rate, and your readiness score before you leap. Remember, you want lower payments, lower property taxes, and manageable insurance costs for the long haul, not just to win a bidding war today. If you want my free interactive spreadsheet to run all these numbers, again, link is below. Download it Plug in your real data and see the light bulb go on. Now let me anchor this with a real example. Emma, a viewer from our Money Masters community, almost jumped into a 30-year mortgage last year. Instead, she followed this MTAP process. Using my spreadsheet and holding off for 6 months, she improved her credit score and waited for a dip in her local market. When she finally bought, she landed a 15-year loan with a manageable payment, reducing her total lifetime interest by $78,000. Plus, her payment was nearly $400 per month lower than if she'd bought the year before. That's the power of strategy over impulse and pressure from headlines. Before I forge ahead with more stats and trends, let's briefly recap, so you're tracking our progress. First, we exposed the historical and policy roots behind the 30-year mortgage explosion. Second, we broke out the math. Hundreds of thousands in extra interest baked into the supposedly affordable loan. Third, we introduced the actionable MTAP framework, including a free tool. Fourth, you saw how a real person avoided a multi-decade mistake and saved big. Here's what's unfolding next, and it's a trend you can't ignore. New mortgage products are getting even riskier. As traditional 30-year loans become tougher for buyers to qualify for, or simply too expensive, borrowers are pivoting to adjustable-rate mortgages or ARMs. Just released mortgage data shows application volume for ARMs jumped to 9.5% of all new mortgages last week, up sharply as buyers seek lower teaser rates. And overall, mortgage application volume just dropped another 4.7% last week, even though activity is 14% higher than the same week a year ago. Most notably, refinance applications are up a whopping 18% year over year, and according to ICE, over half of those are cash-out refinances. That means homeowners are so squeezed for liquidity, they're rating their home equity just to pay bills. Make sure you screenshot or jot down this data, because these shifts signal deeper instability beneath the surface. If you're currently considering an ARM, pause and use my risk calculator before you commit. Now, some headlines say affordability is improving. The ICE October 2025 Mortgage Monitor report says principal and interest for an average home now clocks in at $2,148 per month, 30% of the median household income. That's down from the peak of 35% during 2023's white-hot market, but still 5 percentage points above the long-run average of 25%. So yes, there's a marginal improvement, but let's be clear. Buying a home is still historically unaffordable for most Americans. Don't be lulled by upbeat headlines or tempted by weak competition. Low transaction volume doesn't automatically mean it's the right move for you. And here's a market reality check. If you're an existing homeowner and thinking of trading up or down, bear in mind that falling prices mean you'll likely sell for less, but also potentially buy for less in the future. In many cases, selling now then renting for a year or two and waiting for prices to fall further could save you a bundle in the long run. This approach not only maximizes today's equity, but can also position you for lower payments, taxes, and headaches later on. I recommend crunching those numbers with the spreadsheet before making a leap. Want my free spreadsheet to test your own home buying numbers? Links in the description. It's the simplest way to project 30-year, 15-year, or ARM scenarios against your actual budget. But if you ignore these guidelines, overextend with a risky ARM, put dangerously little down, or stretch for a place that eats up 40 to 50% of your monthly income, you could end up among the growing ranks of financially distressed homeowners. Just look at the latest ATM data. Foreclosure filings spiked 17% in the past year, rising to 101,513 for just the third quarter of 2025. That's 72,317 properties starting foreclosure, a 2% jump quarter over quarter, and up 16% year over year. Bank repossessions rose 4% this quarter, and a staggering 33% compared to last year. This is not just a data point, it's a signal. According to Adam's CEO, 2025 has shown a consistent increase in both foreclosure starts and completions for consecutive quarters, a reflection of how inflation and a slowing job market are crushing households nationwide. More than 3/4 of American adults now say they're stressed by housing costs, whether they own or rent. So what's the lesson? If you purchase below your means, keep your payment under 30% of take-home pay, and stash a robust emergency fund, you're far less likely to face foreclosure, and even in tough times. But the median buyer isn't following these rules, and the system isn't built to help you do so. Here's where I want you to engage. Have you run your own numbers? Have you used a tool to stress test your budget? Or considered the costs of waiting versus buying? Drop a comment below if you have, or if you need help. And if you felt the sting of high prices, or faced down a tough housing choice, share your story. Our Money Masters community is here to support each other, not just debate the headlines. Now, a quick reality check for the next 5 to 7 years. If history repeats, we'll see further affordability improvements in the near term as price corrections continue. But long run, the minute prices drop enough to lure in sidelined buyers, the next feeding frenzy begins driving prices, and mortgage debt sky high all over again. Unless household incomes suddenly start rising a lot faster, housing will continue to become more unaffordable in the decades ahead. Don't get caught flat-footed when that next wave hits, so your mission is clear. Shore up your finances, keep your debt low, grow your down payment, and get your credit score as healthy as possible now, so you'll be ready to pounce on the next great opportunity. The time to prepare is before the crowd races back in. Finally, if you found this breakdown useful, don't forget to subscribe to Money Masters. Next episode, I'll break down the smartest mortgage hacks, plus the red flags to avoid before you sign any contract. If you want in early, check out the video on screen, or grab my free mortgage spreadsheet below. And as always, my videos are for education, not individualized advice. The housing market is complicated, unpredictable, and personal. Please consult a licensed advisor or planner before making any major financial moves. Your situation is unique. Don't gamble your future on averages or internet opinions. And yes, in true Money Masters tradition, if you made it to the end, you earned a virtual gold star, and maybe even heard my neighborhood leaf blower join the show. Welcome to South Florida living. Drop a money bag emoji if you made it this far. Let's see who's really serious about mastering their money. Here's a rapid recap. The 30-year mortgage, far from being a pure blessing, has locked millions into lifelong debt and inflated housing prices to unprecedented highs, especially when you combine government-subsidized lending and affordable minimum down payments. The average $400,000 home at 6% costs $863,280 over 30 years, with $463,280 just in interest, and that's before repairs, taxes, and insurance. A historical look shows home prices have outpaced incomes. Foreclosures are rising, 17% spike in just a year, and adjustable rate cash-out loans are making things riskier than ever. But with the 5-step mortgage trap avoidance plan, pre-approve only what's needed. Analyze full costs. Stress test your payments. Build an emergency fund and use a wait-and-watch checklist. You can avoid becoming a cautionary tale. Use our free mortgage spreadsheet as your next step link in description, and consider sharing your own housing story in the comments, so our Money Masters community can learn together. Immediate action. Download my spreadsheet and enter your current or projected numbers. Set a goal to build a full 6-month emergency fund within the next 90 days. Over the next year, track your local housing prices, credit score, and down payment savings so you're ready if the market turns. Use my framework to revisit your game plan every 6 months or before any big real estate move. With discipline and patience, you'll be prepared when the next affordable window appears, likely within 5 to 7 years if history repeats. Expect to see early progress within 3 to 6 months as you boost savings and confidence. Major results like nailing that purchase at a better price could take a year or more, Stay vigilant and don't rush. Lasting wealth builds over time, not overnight. For the next step, subscribe to Money Master. Next video, I'll reveal the specific mortgage hacks, investment strategies, and red flags that I use myself with detailed case studies and return data. Comment your #1 homeownership question below, or share your buying or renting story. I respond to top questions and will feature real viewer journeys in future videos. Like, subscribe, and become part of a smarter, more empowered money community. As always, this channel is for educational purposes only, not financial tax or investment advice. Always consult a licensed advisor before making major decisions. Your situation is unique. Make your plan, not someone else's.